and thanks for watching our stories from the field. My name is Lisa Croft, and I'm going to talk about the key components of good communication. According to our textbook, the International Association of Business Communicators Handbook of Organizational Communication, a panel of experts came up with a model of excellence in communication. Basically, what they came up with is that good communicators need to be qualified to adopt a worldview model that takes on a two-way street sort of mentality. Information needs to flow both ways. One thing that really caught my attention is that they also focused on that model, that same model, for internal communications. This caught my eye because working in the television industry, we have a joke, and we say communication is our business, not our policy. And the reason we say that is because we tend to have horrible internal communications, if any. And a great example of this is a few years ago we were getting a new editing software, and it was something that most people had not used. And rather than letting us know, communicating with us which software they had chosen, it was bizarrely kept a secret. It was very strange. And so, of course, people started creating rumors and deciding on their own what we were getting. And I think that the company really missed the boat on this, and it did have some repercussions. So what they should have probably done is let us know straight up, this is coming, this is the date it's coming. Employees want to do a good job. They want to be up in their field. So the majority of us would have gone onto websites, perhaps YouTube, lynda.com, which is a technical training website, and gotten ready a little bit on our own so that we weren't blindsided when the software came in. What ended up happening is that the software came in, we all had 1 day of scheduled training, 1 day of practice while we were still working on our regular news, and then the next day it was online, and it was a disaster. We were putting things on the air that were glitchy, we missed stories, all kinds of negative things happened. And I'm hoping that I can take these experiences, as well as the experiences of others in our class, what we're learning in the handbook and what Dr. Ward is teaching us from his experience, and be able to put together a really good way of communicating both internally and externally when I move into my next job. Thanks for listening to my story, and now I'm going to throw it over to Charity.
Thank you, Lisa, for telling your story. I'm Charity Hrenik, and this is my story from the field, addressing the third question, how does organizational culture impact corporate communication? Something Dr. Ward said in his Chapter 1 podcast has stuck with me all of these weeks. He said that people come to the table with different types of diversity, such as different educational backgrounds or different types of work experiences. That struck a chord with me because I realized for the first time what was so unhealthy about my previous employer's organizational culture and how much it affected every level of our corporate communication. The way the company's leaders treated those types of diversity had a far-reaching impact on how they communicated with employees and how they structured the company's goals and activities. I now realize that company is stuck in a rut because of this company culture. The leaders really need to hear, as Dr. Ward says in his Chapter 1 podcast, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. If you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. Reading Chapter 3 of the IABC Handbook of Organizational Communication, I had a bit of an aha moment. I hadn't really thought about it before, but the way the corporation communicates shows how the company thinks about itself. It seems so obvious, but I had never really stopped to think about it in that way. How the company treats its employees and how it communicates to them internally definitely says a lot about the company's culture. This particular company, which provided educational services, is led by a CEO and CFO who value only one narrow educational and work background, the Kansas Teaching Certificate. They divide people into two groups, those who are valuable and smarter than everyone else because they hold a Kansas Teaching Certificate, and those who don't measure up because they come from a different educational background or field. I had even seen them scoff at master's and doctoral degrees if the person did not hold a teaching certificate first. Prizing this one piece of paper over all of the others led them to communicate in drastically different manners depending upon the educational background of the person or group they were communicating with. This impacts everything the company does, even the perks that it provides to employees. For example, there are a large number of consultants in this company, and below that there is a level of support staff. Everyone at the consultant level is supposed to be equal. They're provided with brand new iPhones, laptops of their choice, iPad minis, and other technology that they need to perform their jobs. All of them, that is, except the 2 consultants who did not possess a Kansas teaching certificate. People like us, the people in charge of marketing, PR, communications. Though supposedly the same level of consultant, those employees get the cast-off or hand-me-down technology after the teachers are done with it. And below them is the support staff. If they're lucky, they might get to purchase the old equipment at a discount once the consultants are done with it. Communications are handled in much the same way. Certain consultants are always in the loop. In Chapter 3 of the textbook, we learned that a healthy corporate culture establishes a climate of transparency. Communication is supposed to be consistent, not vastly different to groups within the company. As Dr. Ward said in his Chapter 2 podcast, different groups can't be told different things. I worked for that company for 14 years. Looking back, I can see that it was a very unhealthy organizational culture. With the benefit of hindsight and the new insights from this class, I will be more proactive in the future in helping to build a culture in my company that fosters healthy communications.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Charity. I'd like to take just a little bit of time to talk about personal ethics and corporate ethics and the role in communication that both of those hold. In order to properly communicate in a corporate world, you have to understand your own personal ethics, but you have to understand the cultural ethics and the corporate ethics from which you are working. And you also have to understand a little bit about ethics. Ethics is not just yes or no, good or bad. That leads down the road to absolutism. It's not just cultural relativism where you have to accept that each culture's ethics and mores are correct. The best way to look at ethics is a middle-of-the-road approach or a pluralistic approach where you understand what your own ethics are, you understand what your corporate ethics are, and you understand the culture from which you operate. In this way, you're able to find a middle path where everyone, hopefully, is happy. Just a little story from the field. When I was much younger, I worked at a bank branch in a large city and was very gung-ho and not very mature. And I was very much policy and structure oriented. But then I was required to move to a small town and a very small rural town in the southern part of the United States, whose culture was much different. Their idea of policy and rules were more of a guideline, quite honestly. And I had a very hard time because I didn't understand pluralism. I was an absolutist. This is the way it should be done, and this is the way we should do it, and that was just not the way that they did it. And unfortunately, it caused a lot of strife, and if I had it to do again, I would certainly go with the pluralistic, do the middle road. So that gives you kind of an idea of what not to do. If you are in a situation that is new to you, you need to listen to your colleagues. You have to know yourself. You have to find the middle path. I hope that our stories from the field will help more than just textbook examples, because real stories tend to give you a little bit more idea of what does make excellence in communication, how to deal with corporate culture and culture in communication and how to deal with ethics. Thanks.